distance in the light, vibration of a thundercloud.
Hello, loved ones. This is Matt Stevens, and this is the My Sober Addiction podcast. And we are happy, healthy, wealthy, loved, and free. Yes, loved ones, if you remember, I did add loved to our mantra in every episode. I think it's important to remember that we are loved, even though sometimes it doesn't always feel that way. But yes, we need to remind ourselves of that on a regular basis. And with me today, we have Clive. He's back. I'm very excited about having Clive back on. He always has insights that, well, he just is he's a very insightful dude. And I am super excited to have him back on so that we can kind of pick his brain a little better, at least I can, and then bring it to you, dear loved one. So anyway, Clive, how are you?
I'm good, and thanks for having me back on. And, you know, I get a lot from listening to your podcasts. I think podcasts are a very good, high-quality thing to engage the brain with. I think they can genuinely change and evolve the way that we think and the way we interact with the world and what we get back from the world. So certainly listening to your podcast helps raise my energy frequency a bit, and I've taken quite a lot from your words, actually, and the fact that you're here presenting this stuff and helping people out gives me hope that the world is a slightly nicer place, the fact that you're doing that. So it resonates with me. And I like the fact that hopefully other people are listening that it resonates with, and it makes their lives a little bit better, and then they ripple that out and make other people's lives a little bit better.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, since we've met, I mean, you have, brought things to my attention, just your insight has brought things to my attention that I hadn't thought of, or, just a different angle. It's always good to get someone else's opinion, especially somebody that you can resonate with. I mean, you can't always get somebody, bring in just any old person. You've got to make sure it's someone that you can resonate with so that, kind of vibratory match, I suppose. But you've got a lot of things going on yourself as far as that goes. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with. That's what I've said. Clive's always got something going on. And it's admirable. It really is. So what have you been doing since we talked last? I know we've got the Breaking My Addictions podcast, that going, and then well, you take it.
Nothing huge. Just running the therapy center, running Curious Threads podcast as well. And again, just looking at ways to, kind of resonate with people and kind of like move my life forward. Like I'm 50 years old now. I'm still mildly in debt and I don't own a house anymore. And it's like, those are the things that you think, well, actually, I want to change my life. I want to evolve it. You either settle for, actually, I'm okay with that and that's where I'm going to stay. Or you feel hopeless and you think, I'm never going to change that. Or you think, actually, I'm going to get off my ass and start doing some bits. I've always been a hard worker. I haven't always, used that well. But again, what was in my value system? Was it actually about making money? Was it about security? Or is it about trying to achieve different things? Now, for different people, knowing what you want to achieve and do and actually feeling like you can achieve it allows you to actually start to have the motivation to do it. If you feel learned helpless and you feel there's no point in trying to do something and you believe that yourself, it's much easier to turn and just go and drink yourself into a grave or to, shoot up or whatever. And I think part of it's got to start in your head. You've got to see that you value something, that something resonates with you. And then you've got to start believing that it's possible to actually pursue that in a way that not actually achieving it is going to make all the difference, but actually the journey is enough to motivate you. And this is what they're saying nowadays with stuff like phone addiction and stuff, is that we are getting that dopamine hit from the scrolling and the thinking rather than the actual doing. And I use the example of, where's the dopamine hit for doing the washing up and tidying the kitchen nowadays? And, we get more dopamine from sitting there scrolling, but we need a dopamine hit for doing the washing up because otherwise we're not going to do it. And if we don't do the washing up, then our friend don't come around and we don't have that nice conversation and then we don't start that business. Then these are all knock-on effects from small things. And actually it's a lot easier to turn to your addiction, your comfort zone for that hit, for that, buzz, for that escapism. Whereas actually, if you go, actually, that is not moving me forward anymore, and I'm sick of being stuck there, then you have to go, well, actually, what do I want? When you feel that emptiness, when you feel that hollowness, you think, I want to tidy my kitchen. Actually, that's important to me. I want a tidier house. I want to have repaired that relationship, or I want to have, and again, that to me has been the biggest turning point in giving up my vices, is actually going, well, what do I want? Genuinely, what do I want? And actually, what work do I need to put in to get it? So that at the moment, I have been putting the work in. I go running, I do my businesses, I look after my kids, I try and sort the house out, I try and innovate new ideas, and I try and have good conversations with people like yourself. And check it out.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the scrolling, because yesterday morning I caught myself doom scrolling. And I was on X and I'm just scrolling. And finally, it occurred to me what I was doing. And that's the thing about that kind of thing is, you do lose a lot of time, because I know I lost at least a good hour. And in that hour, I could have got a good 20-minute meditation in. I could have read. I could have done a lot of things besides doom scrolling. And I don't even know what I looked at. I really don't. I don't. And I assume I was getting the dopamine hits because that's what the whole purpose of the scrolling is, and all that. But I caught myself. I got a little angry, not terribly bad, but I got a little angry with myself. I'm like, man, this is just stupid. And there's nothing wrong with taking a little break, just saying, look, I just need to decompress and just chill out for a minute and do a little doom scroll. Okay, fine. If you want to scroll some, but I had literally just gotten out of bed. I hadn't done anything. And maybe got a cup of coffee, and then I was doing that. And I like, yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it, but definitely keep yourself in check. And that's one of the reasons why I think I've mentioned the awareness alarms many, many times. And I think that's good because, like, for example, during that time when I was doing that, had I had an awareness alarm go off on my phone, it's like, hey, it's time to get mindful, center yourself into the now. Had I had that happen, say in the middle of doing that, I would have been like, oh, wow, I would have realized what I was doing. And I would have brought my awareness back into the moment and been maybe not wasted so much time. But, I did, and it's fine. I learned from it. I'm good. But as far as like cleaning up, when you mentioned that, keeping your kitchen clean, I can't remember what it was, but it reminded me there was a book that was written, and they were talking about, if you want to make your life better, the first thing you need to do is make your bed. And it's like, and that sounds so like, what? It's like, I'm looking for some big, it's like if I'm looking for some big word of wisdom to better my life, and you're going to come through here and tell me to make my bed. I mean, that's kind of, it's, come on, man. But it's so true. It's like, take care of those little things like that. It's like, we've gotten into a really good habit. We do keep our bed made. And I'll tell you, it does feel good when I walk in the bedroom and the bed's made. And it's something as simple, and you could even say as silly as that, but it does make an impact in your life. It's just, what standards are you willing to accept from yourself? A lot of times, in a lot of cases, we usually accept less from ourselves than we would expect from someone else, or than we would give someone else, for that matter. But it's like, you need to raise your standards of yourself, for your own expectations of yourself. Be good, be better to yourself, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, say, for example, if you were single and you had a date coming round to your house, you'd probably tidy the house up, get it lovely. You'd feel very excited about getting it all sorted and tidy. But you should do that for yourself. And again, dating, they do say you should become the person that you would wish to date, which I like. I think that's a great expression. But going back to kind of making the bed, there's another book called Eat the Frog. And the idea there is that, you've got these big things that you keep putting off, and you should eat the frog, as in do the bad, the hard thing that you've been putting off. Like, it could be like we talked about, for booking an appointment, or sorting out a bill, or, addressing something that you don't want to look at. But what they've said recently is that for a lot of people, it's not actually, you've got to build up to that. It's better to do all the small things, all the little bits that are bugging you. Once those are clear, it gives you the energy to go, right, I can now tackle that. And you've also taken a run up at it. You kind of built a motivation of, your bars being raised of dealing with stuff. And they say stuff with, for example, running, they've shown it actually develops a part of your brain that enables you to have a bit more willpower to actually be a bit stronger about stuff. So if you run or walk regularly and you push things a little bit further, instead of giving up, you can actually train your brain not to give up so easily. And
Yeah.
what you've then got to do, I mean, like Yoda said, you know, the easy path is not always the right path. I don't know if he said that directly, but like, you know, sometimes the hard path is where the good stuff is. And it's just being able to convince our minds, you know, our minds, I think, are inherently quite lazy. They want our body to rest, to conserve energy, and to be safe. Whereas actually, to start doing new things, whatever, it puts us at risk almost, you know, like the unfamiliar, the things that, you know, but without taking risks, we don't make progress. And yet those risks of, you know, potentially getting rejected or not getting that job or whatever are probably much smaller risks than buying like a wrap of heroin and shooting it up into our veins.
Well,
Big
so-
people, you know. So I mean, drug takers are risk takers, but not on the things that potentially might be really important to themselves. Like I say, trying to repair a relationship or accepting that a relationship cannot be repaired, which sometimes is the toughest pill to swallow, to recognize that something cannot be repaired and made better.
Well, it's funny you mention that because, like, you know, we've talked about this before about, you know, people who use drugs or are currently in active addiction. It's like, instead of dealing with something, whatever the case may be, something comes up in their life, instead of dealing with it, they will go and get high instead. Or, and like you mentioned, repairing a relationship. Like, you know, many people who are in active addiction definitely have damaged relationships. And instead of, even if the opportunity to maybe repair that, or at least make some kind of connection, like if they've lost touch with a loved one and something were to happen where they are now in front of that loved one, and now's the opportunity to maybe say, I'm sorry, or whatever the case may be. In a lot of cases, they won't do it because they're afraid of rejection. And that's part of life. Nobody wants to be rejected. Nobody wants to be told no, or whatever the case may be. But it's like, instead of facing things, they just go bury their head in the sand. You know, I've done that. I'm one of the world's worst about that. Let's put it that way. I've worked on that. That's something I've definitely worked on since, you know, in the last 8 years since been getting sober, is facing the things that I need to face, whether I want to or not. And I know that there's going to be some pain. Yes, there will be some pain. But once you do it, you realize it wasn't that bad. And in fact, it's probably less painful than had I not done it.
Yeah.
Because now it's over and now we can move forward, and it's actually better rather than keeping it wherever it was, you know.
I mean, I've got an example from when I was a kid. This is the most stupid example, but I had a library book out at school. I was probably like 13 or 14. I had a library book out from the school library, and it was overdue by a month. And the librarian was quite scary in my eyes. She was a scary woman, all right? And
Okay.
I didn't take the book back. And then I avoided the library.
Oh,
And then,
yes, that's the
2 months, I used to go there at lunchtime, and then I avoided the library. 2 months later, and I'm worrying about it on quite a reasonably regular basis.
it's compounding.
Compounded.
Right?
And then
Yeah.
3 months have gone, and I'm every now and again I'd say, oh God, that library book, and it's sitting there in my room. And then 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And I actually almost went to the stationery store and bought a date stamp. I was going to buy a date stamp and stamp it with the, no, I can't do that. And one day I just had enough of this. I was like, right, I'm going to take it back in. And I took it into the library, and I was like, oh my God. So I'm terrified. I'm really sorry. This is so overdue. And she looked at it and she went, oh, that's fine. Stamped it and put it back in the pile.
All that worry.
6 months. 6 months. Now, how many people listening have got stuff like that in their life?
Oh God, yeah.
You know, and again, I think the more I call it like mental feng shui, you know, like, you know, if you've got all that stuff, it's like having 100 browser tabs open on your computer. Once you've got 100 browser tabs open, it's very hard to concentrate on the one that you actually need to be working on. So if you can start, just even close one tab a day, you know, actually, right, that tab's bothering me, that one's bothering me, actually. And, you know, when I talk about closing a tab, it might not actually be about fully resolving it, but accepting that you've done what you're going to do with it. Like, that's enough, you know, like I have, you know, tried, you know, I've said, I'm sorry, or I've, you know, gone, actually, that bothers me. Do you mind not doing it? I have this boundary now. And if you're going to do that, I'm not going to do it. You know, boundaries, putting your voice clearly and kindly forward to people and stating what you want. And I think one of the best advices that one of the counselors at my work gave me was, rather than going back with people and picking apart all the things they've done and and that time you did this and that and that, for some people that will never work. And it's much, much better to start looking at what you want. Actually, I want to be talked to with kindness and respect, you know, rather than saying that time you talked to me like that. And again, these are habits and addictions of thinking almost, you know, that, you know, someone's done that, so I'm going to do this. And, you know, we get in these patterns again and again, and they form our lives and they form our reality. And some of it's not our fault at all. Sometimes we're dealing with assholes, you know, or we're dealing with people who are acting very badly. And again, we then have to decide, are we going to draw our distance from them? Are we going to draw our boundaries? Can we say something that will make things better with them, or at least protect our space better around them? And I think a lot of people have got open tabs relating to how they relate to other people, or how they now just have got it in the background of their minds. And it's just bad energy, bad feng shui, mental feng shui in their head. And like, how do we start to heal some of that rather than carrying it around like huge suitcases of baggage?
Right. No, that's very good. It's just dealing with issues as they come. And right. I mean, with regards to the baggage, I mean, yes, a lot of people have a lot of baggage, yes, that they have carried around. Like the library booked at 6 months past due. And then you find that it wasn't even that big of a deal. And that it was, talk about being anticlimactic. You were probably, I don't know what you were expecting, but then you're like, that's it. That's it. Yeah. And like, that was all just, okay. You know, and a lot of times that is how the kind of the case. I mean, like, for example, with the librarian, she deals with thousands of books. This is just one, you know, and lots of kids. That's just one. Okay. And she may have been big, scary or whatever. I mean, yeah, to a kid, most likely.
I've experienced various altered states in my life. And one of them that really struck home with me, it really felt like I was being told to stare my demons down, you know, like, you know, when you get that existential dread and you just, you know, don't feel part of the world anymore and you question everything. And I think that's something that drugs can do in a medicinal format almost, you know, like if some people use drugs for escapism, some people use them for exploration, some people use them for hedonism. I think the ones that act medicinally and now are being explored as such, you know, such as some therapeutic uses of certain drugs, they work by putting you in a position of kind of like everything's magnified. Everything's like, oh my God, that's so big and that's so huge. And I can't deal with this anymore. Either I'm going to have to stare it down or walk away, run away from it, you know? And again, you know, if I'd been in that state about the library book, to suddenly on, you know, week 2, have it magnified to this huge thing that either had to be sorted out or destroy me, I probably would have taken the book back, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Well, you know, okay, I've been recently, I did a video. I'm going to change gears on you a little bit here, but recently I did a video and I was talking about how a lot of times when we look at and it doesn't necessarily have to be politics or whatever, it could just be the state of the world. And I don't necessarily mean like politically or any of that. It can just be the state of the world, just the way people are today. Like we will go out in society and we see how self-centered people can be. And just so when I say the state of the world, I don't necessarily mean current events. I just mean the mentality of humanity, the collective. And sometimes for me, it is very discouraging because I can look at that and I think, geez, what is the point in even trying? Right. And I do know that there are a lot of really good people out there who really do want to make a difference. But at the same time, they also have that attitude. They look and they think, what is the use? Because the way that things are now, if you look at it, I guess it's a glass half full, glass half empty, if you want to be pessimistic, optimistic, or whatever. But it's like when I look at some people, if you look at the state of the world in one particular way, and then you say, just to screw this, why even bother trying to be a better person or help, whatever the case may be. But it's like, I try to maintain the attitude of, listen, that's a them problem. That's their problem. As far as the collective is concerned, that's their problem. What you need, the only thing that you can really focus on is you as an individual. And are you doing the things that you feel like you need to be doing? And what I really wanted to talk with you about, because you always have something going on. You always seem so optimistic. And I know that in the past, you've talked about how that sometimes the state of the world just is very discouraging. But yet, nonetheless, you still stay optimistic and you still keep pushing forward. So, and I think that's admirable. And that's what I wanted to talk with you about. How would you advise someone who does want to do good things, but then they look around them and they think, what's the use? So what are your thoughts?
I think the simplest way of putting it is where your attention goes, your energy flows.
Yes.
And it's so true. If you're sat there watching CNN and Fox News all day, or, and you're watching all this, mad power plays going off and corruption and lies, and, it's just mind boggling. And I used to, watch all that, and it's not good. Whereas actually, if you, say, get involved in a volunteer thing, and then you're, making new connections and you're concentrating on those things, then suddenly that becomes important. I mean, just something simple like, growing some plants in your back garden or in the house, and actually taking pride in them, or starting to eat more healthily and cook better. Making better connections. I do think connections. There's a guy called Johan Hari, and he talks about connections, does a TEDx talk about it. And he says that, we become addicts because we have lost that human connection, with people around us. And we can be so busy, focused on the bigger problems in the world, that we forget our neighbors, our friends, the people that we kind of vibe with and, kind of do get on well with and could move forward with. And, the kind of people that, when you move forward, it helps them move forward a bit. And when they move forward, it helps you forward a bit, and
right.
When we can actually start to build the momentum of doing small things, it might be that, you do art, but then, someone else builds websites and they help you build a website, but you also help them by doing design work, that give and take. It's not for the money, it's for helping other people out. I think, one of the things that really struck me at times when I felt very down and low is that I haven't been giving much. I think we need to give a little bit back. If we're just consuming and taking, we don't feel secure. We don't feel that other people are naturally going to have our backs. When we're designed to be part of a community, we've got so divided, we should be working together. This is great. I'm doing a podcast with you, for example, that makes me feel connected,
Right.
and there's no money involved, but it works, and again, if you can make that into your living as well, that's even better. If you can make money helping people or helping yourself or doing something of value, but again, you've got to know what is of value to you. For some people, it would be making music and art. For some people, it will be just doing a good job or helping someone by fixing their car or by, running a shop and actually having good social interaction with people who come in the show, just whatever's important to you. possibly if not making arms for people, I mean, I certain things I have trouble getting my head around, but I'm sure, even then some people have their justifications, like, well, I'm helping them to secure the borders in the country. I don't know. But anyhow, that's not
Right. I got you.
But for me, going back to when I felt very low, one of the most amazing poems that hit me was a poem called Desiderate by Max Ernst. And this was written, I think, in 1927. And I'm just going to read just the first little bit of this.
Sure, go for it, yeah.
Really, I think if you put this in the show notes, it's a great poem for anyone to read. I think it's helpful for anyone. I'm not going to read the whole
I'll
thing,
do that.
but I don't know if you've heard this before, but this helped me a lot. It says, go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others. Even to the dull and the ignorant, they too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery, but let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. And it continues like that. And it's, to me, that was one of the most powerful poems in switching my mentality, because I was so focused on all the problems and and to hear this person write, the world is actually full of beauty and people trying to help each other as well. Which one are you going to look at? You're going to look at the problems, or are you going to look at be part of the solution? There's that expression, you're going to be part of the problem or part of the solution.
Right. Yeah. Well, no, that's good. I mean, it is easy to look at the negative stuff. And even if you do switch your focus from that, I mean, it doesn't mean it goes away. Of course, it's still there. But it's like, what good is what good is going to come from me focusing on the negative things? I mean, what good is it going to do? All it's going to do is that's taking my attention, my energy, and putting it towards that. So really, if anything, I am making that stronger by giving it my energy. But if I were to shift my attention to something else, yes, that thing is still there. It's still there. It's still going. However, I'm not feeding it my energy, so I'm not strengthening it. But regardless of whether that's there or not, doesn't matter. What I am focusing on would be something more positive and something that will make a difference. And it's not going to make the other thing go away. No, but hopefully we can maybe balance it out a little bit, at least, kind of bring the balance more towards the good, rather than focusing our attention and subsequent energy towards the not good. But it is hard sometimes to stay motivated to push forward. It is, because when you're out here trying to make a difference and you're trying to do the right things, or whatever the case may be, and then you see all the bad stuff going on, it's like, damn, does it even matter? I mean, if I didn't do this, would it matter? And it's like, yeah, it would matter. It might not matter on that scale as far as the state of the world is concerned, but if you can make a difference in your local community, or in your neighborhood, or wherever, that kind of thing amplifies. And plus, somebody may be around you that needs to see your example. Somebody may be around you that's like, I want to make a difference too, but nobody else is. So everybody's waiting for somebody else to make the first move. So I'm like, why don't you be that person? You make that first move, and you might be surprised at how many people kind of follow your lead. And now you've got multitudes of people all focusing their attention on something positive. So, I mean, you just don't know. I mean, unless you do that.
Let's say, if you had a load of people, out at sea, and, someone starts swimming and, pulling a raft along, then other people start swimming, we all start moving. And this is it. We're all working in different directions. If we all start to kind of work together a little bit more, and if the starting point is actually making your own life better, but not at the expense of anyone else. I think that's important. If you can make your life better, not at the expense of someone else, then it will naturally radiate out and make other people's lives better, because your energy will raise. And when people are around people with good energy, it raises them up as well. You know, we can help other people by just helping ourselves. There's a line in the Jonathan Swift poem. It says, "Carve for yourself is starving." And, you know, to actually look after ourselves is really, self-care is massively important. And, you know, going back to this thing, that basic equation of, you know, if you ask anyone, do you want your life to be better? I don't think there's really a person in the world who'd say no, honestly. You know, there's some people who would go, no, God, you know, I don't deserve it or whatever. But most people will go, yes, I do want my life to be better. And then maybe we need to start looking at, well, what's the issue? What's stopping you making your life better? Is it that you don't believe it can be better? Is it that you don't know how to make it better? Is it you don't know what will make it better? And for myself, I mean, say, for example, giving up smoking was one of the hardest things that I've done. But now it took so long to give it up. But now it's like, do I want that? No. What do I want instead? Well, yeah, I probably want to get that sorted instead. You know, what's that hollow that it was filling inside me? You know, there's an emptiness quite often, I think, with addiction that is being filled. You know, it's a comfy place to go to. It's that kind of safe, comfy, you know, it's like a warm hug almost, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
And yet, going and doing the thing that's making you need a hug is actually a bit scary. So rather than doing it, we need a hug. And then we need a hug for the fact that we haven't done it. And it's even scarier now, you know? And it's a vicious circle. And actually, if we can just go, actually, what do I want? Actually, and maybe take the hug as well if you really need to. But, you know, the more you go and address those other things, you do that mental feng shui and clear up those browser tabs, start knocking them down a little bit. Regardless of what you're doing addiction-wise, you're going to feel better. You're going to be stronger. You're going to have a better effect on the people around you. And if you've got, you know, kids and such, you need to do it for them as well, you know. So I have made some changes because of my kids. You know, I want to be the example. I want to be the example and not the horrible warning.
Right. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is a good motivator. I mean, you know, so you want to be a great example for your kids, and I mean, and you're going to make things better for everybody involved, you know. I mean, by making your own life better, they are just by default, their life is going to improve just because yours has. Because, I mean, everybody knows that the kid, you know, I mean, most of the time, of course, I know there are exceptions, but most of the time people look up to their parents. And they want to see that their parents are doing well. And if they are, then they feel good about things. And then, you know, and a lot of times kids will model their own, what they accept for themselves after what they've been taught by their parents. So it's good to see, maybe hold yourself, as we said, hold yourself to a higher standard for what you'll accept from yourself, for yourself, and understand that those little people are watching you. And if they see you not settling for less of yourself, then they won't either. And like in my case, I've got 2 daughters and they're young adults, and I want them to see me doing well and taking care of myself so that they'll be like, well, I'm going to do that too, because I know they still look up. They don't look up to me like they did when they were little, of course, but I think that I'm setting an example of what are you willing to accept from yourself, for yourself. That kind of thing. And another thing, I really liked your closing out the browser tabs thing. That is a very good analogy. I mean, that's a very good way of, I mean, obviously, literally closing out those browser tabs, that is a very good thing to do because it will declutter, you know. And plus, how many of those, when's the last time you looked through those anyway, really? In most cases, you haven't. I mean, I've got tabs open on my browser that I guess I kept it thinking, I may go back and look at that someday. Probably won't. Really, I probably just won't. But that is a very good analogy. I mean, literally and figuratively, in both cases, in both regards. It is good literally, but also we've got so many of those little things in our life that if we just kind of, and it wouldn't take nothing to just kind of chip away at them.
But some of those browser tabs are huge. Like, for example, I mean, like if someone's done something really bad to you in the past, like there's like that's always there. And it's like, you can't necessarily resolve it. You can't heal it. You can't put it right. Or if you've done something bad to someone else. And again, it's, well, okay, at what point do you forgive? Well, if someone's done something really bad and it's horrendous what they've done, then you think, well, I can't forgive them. And now forgiveness is a whole conversation in itself. But it's a massive browser tab that people have. Some people go through their whole lives holding on to something that happened and not forgiving it or accepting, I don't know, there's a crossover between it. But the thing that I find interesting is just because you've forgiven something doesn't mean that it was right. It doesn't mean the person was right to do it. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have very strong boundaries in place as a result of it. And I think once all of those are in, it's easier to accept or to go, that is resolved as far as it can be for the moment. And some things are really painful and you may need to see a therapist or whatever to move through those things. But some of those things in the background are worth finding some way to resolve or at least put away in a safer format. If that makes...
Find a way to let it go.
Yeah. I mean, I have this analogy when I have a lot of stuff in my head and it's almost like, you've got all this stuff flying around your head about the world, about people, about this, that, and others that's happened in your life. And, to take those bits out is quite scary and to look at some of them. But if you take them down and almost write them down, each one on a Post-it note, and you file them back, then they're not as chaotic in your head. They're not just floating around like a hurricane, like a tornado, getting just, oh, that bothers me, that bothers me, that bothers me. They're not so scary. I can't just write them down, put them away, and I can take them out when it's safe and I've got the energy to do so, I just think that there are ways of working with the things that bother us. And again, if you can afford a counsellor or a therapist and you've got deep, deep issues, it's worth going. But if not, you need to work with yourself and with good friends and supportive people around you sometimes, I think.
Yeah. Well, especially with people like with regards to, people who are living sober. In a lot of cases, at some point, at least, they were going to meetings, be it AA, NA, or Celebrate Recovery, or what, any of those. And in a lot of cases, they were going to meetings. And I realized during the pandemic that kind of went away. Of course, there were the online ones. But sometimes I guess it would be, I would advise someone to maybe reconnect with that, because that is a very good sense of community. And it's people who understand you, who understand what you've been through. They've been through it too. And it's just good to get around people who are moving forward in the same way that you are, or not necessarily, maybe not in the same way that you are, but who just understand where you're coming from and understand the things that may be on your mind. And they also understand the way that the habits and the things that you have done in the past to cope with whatever is going on. So getting that sense of community around you sometimes can be a good way of just being able to put the negative things behind you. So that way you've got positive things in front of you. I guess it's easier to walk away from bad things if you've got positive things to walk towards, is what I'm trying to say.
That is.
But, if you don't have anything around you, it's like, well, I'm just going to sit and marinate in this for a little bit. And it's like, yeah.
Well, that's it. And I think that's what you're saying with the groups. There's this non-judgmental area. It should feel like a safe space. You're hearing other people be brave enough to share and to try and, bring that stuff out of the darkness and some light. And a lot of times it's not as scary when you shine a bit of light on it. It's worse, like the library book in the back of my mind. It seemed scary. Here's a library book. It's crazy. And so, being able to say, actually, yeah, I did this, I've done that, and have people go, oh, shit, yeah, that's tough, man, And then you can work for it. So I do think AA and NA can be amazing for that. And I know you're out some, and I've amazing success.
I've I don't want to say I've said negative things about them. I haven't said negative things. I haven't always been a big go to meetings kind of guy. I understand why they're important. I do. And I understand how they have helped, and they have saved so many lives. They have saved so many relationships. Just they've done a lot of good. They really have. Now I do pick on them sometimes with their slogans, just because that's just part of my charm, as I would say. And I'm gonna kind of pick on them with their slogans, but they are very good. And I will always recommend someone to go. Definitely go and do that. If it's ever on your mind to go to one of those meetings, don't even think about it anymore. Just go. Because you're going to find people who are inspiring. You're also going to find people who are going to whine and complain. Yes, they're going to be there. They're always going to be there. But it's like, I'm not, it's like, am I looking for this or am I looking for that? Well, you're going to find both, but whichever one you're focusing on is the one you're going to gravitate towards. So if there's there's, like I said, in any group of people, there's going to be some bad ones. There's going to be some good ones. That's okay. I'm not here for the bad ones. I'm here for the good ones. So that's all, but, or maybe we could possibly change the people who are maybe more negative. Maybe we can bring them over to this side. It's always possible. You never know.
As you were saying before, it's really important to focus on changing yourself, because we don't like being changed by other people. So really,
that's very true.
Really is down to us to change ourselves. And, the way that we view the world, we take for granted it. I mean, I've been viewing the world a certain way for 50 years. It's quite hard to shift that. But there are other people who see the world very differently to me. And I have to entertain that. Some of them might have a slightly healthier view of the world than me, and that's why I find stuff like listening to podcasts really helpful, because it's a good way of getting a little insight into how other people think, and you can cherry pick the best bits that work for you. Everyone's different. Everyone responds to different things, but if you gravitate towards the stuff that seems to be kind of working for you, you will pick bits, you will adapt them, you will change them, and you can make them work for you. And if you, again, like we say, identify what you value and what you want, and start to have a little bit of belief that you can move towards it, then your brain will start naturally making better decisions. You will find them just, if you take that minute of silence and you think, what do I really want at the moment? And then just let it marinate a bit, just kind of let it come down. What's important to me? I'm not like, oh, well, actually, this, I haven't got this house anymore, whatever. No, what's important to me now that I can actually change tomorrow? Like what actually really could make a difference. And, for me as a 13-year-old, it was taking that sodding library book back. That made a difference. Now, I've got to tidy up some websites that I'm making. I've got to get on top of my therapy web designs websites to get some more money in. I've got to do some bits at the therapy center. I've got to address some things for my kids to make things look better. I've got to repair a few. I've got various things I need to do, and I'm aware of it, and I'm kind of working away at it. I got up today and I changed one of my sites to do a lot and create some adverts for it and stuff. And I feel like I'm moving forwards, and I've got quite a poverty mindset, to be honest. I haven't got enough money. Oh, money's always a worry and a stress and this, that, and the other. And I'm trying to shift that at the moment to actually, the universe is looking after me. I've got enough. I'm fine. And I'm going to do the right things that will move me forward, and everything else will come. I'm not chasing it anymore. The universe doesn't like you chasing bits of it. What it likes is you resonating with it and doing the right things, I think. And I'm just gradually trying to enjoy the journey more, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day. But if you can enjoy the process, if you can enjoy putting some music on and tidying up the kitchen, if you can enjoy, sitting down and responding to 10 emails in 20 minutes as a challenge, and then feeling really good that they're done and out the way, and then you go and have a cup of coffee in the garden or whatever, these are the things that can change your life. And if we do those things on a daily basis, just even a 2% difference every day will make a huge difference over the course of a year. They say if you plant a tree at a low angle, it grows like that. And after 10 years, it will be, low to the ground. If you prop it up by a few degrees. After a couple of years, it will grow so much higher. And we all got so much more potential than we think. And a lot of us lost that belief in that potential when we didn't get the grades in school. We didn't get the A grades and the B grades, and we didn't understand the work, and we didn't feel motivated, and we didn't get what we were doing it for. And none of the system made sense. And the world messes with your head, and a lot of people don't know how to deal with that. And I've struggled with that all my life, I will be honest. Yeah. And I don't think it's that I'm ADHD or autistic. I think I just struggle with the world. It's a bonkers world, but I'm finding my way of dealing with that. And everyone's way is going to be different, but we should all help each other out by sharing what works with us in a way that people go, actually, that bit helps me, actually. I now tell people now, I do still drink, but, if I drink 2 pints, that's a heavy night for me. Would have been starter before,
Right.
And for people who are drinking loads, that makes them think it's like, oh, God. And I've had people go, actually, that's the best thing I've heard, actually, lately, because actually, I do drink too much, and recognizing it and actually shifting what you do. And again, you don't want to be preachy or whatever, but set the example for yourself to yourself, I think, is the best place to start.
That's been my biggest message all along is to be a good example, and it's in that way you don't feel like you're being preachy. Nobody thinks you're being preachy. You're not being preachy. You're just leading by an example. And if people choose to follow it, or if people, like I've said a lot, people that you used to use with or used to drink with or whatever, they're going to see that there's been a change in you. They're going to see that, you are healthier. You look good. You look strong. You're doing you're doing things with your life. It's like, wow. Okay. Wow. He really did it. And then it's like, well, if he can do it, then so can I, or whatever. It's just being an example, and you may not even realize you're being an example, but in a lot of cases you really are. I mean, there's a lot of people who I remember whenever I was still using, and then someone else would not, I would get curious. How are they doing? And then I'd get on social media. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, so-and-so's got a job now and doing really well and blah, blah, blah. And that's encouraging to see that, to see other people do that. But anyway, so what have you got going on? We're going to wrap it up soon here, I guess. What all have you got going on with your projects? You got the Curious, the other podcast we've touched on the Breaking My Addictions, but there's
I know the Curious Threads, so it's spelled QRIOUS threads.com. But basically that's just having conversations about life in general. So the last podcast was on reality and how we perceive reality, because the way we see things is so important, and actually it's not taught in schools, like that we can shift the way we see the world, and that creates a whole new world around us, creates new possibilities, new energy. And I think these are important conversations. So, I'm up for taking podcast guests if they want to talk about philosophical life stuff. But really, Breaking My Addictions, really, for me, I work with kids in care. I saw a lot of kids struggling with, the parents that had addictions and then ended up with addictions themselves.
Right.
That bothered me a lot. And I studied psychology. I don't feel that enough is being done in the areas of, helping people avoid addiction. I just don't see it. But again, that's up to me to find.
Well, the Curious Threads, I do need to, that you've got some very interesting things going on there. And by the way, dear loved ones, Clive, he's got a merch shop on there, and some really very interesting t-shirts and just designs. If you definitely want something that is very unique, I would definitely recommend going to the Curious Threads. It's QRIOUS threads.com.
One of the ideas about the website, I mean, I'm a poet, a creator, a musician, but I'm a psychology kind of enthusiast. But one of the ideas about the designs behind the t-shirts is that they make you think, they challenge you. It could be a t-shirt that says, life should be more fun. like just a simple statement like that. But actually, if you start to think about it and you scroll through those, so you don't need to buy any of my t-shirts, just come and have a look at them. Read some of the articles. I mean, I've just written an article just now regarding this podcast. So just on how to increase motivation when things are tough in a crazy world. So I'm just going to go through 10 points quickly to round off this podcast. If that's
Sure, go for it.
So the advice in this article, which I'll put on the Curious Threads website and I'll share with you as well. I'll just read the titles of the sections. So 10 of these, and I think they're quite good actually. So the first thing is to seek support and connection, which is what we talked about. And I do think podcasts are a form of connection. I think they're really good for that. You're connecting with yourself, you're connecting with other people. And actually, I connected with you after hearing your podcast. I sent you a message, and then here we are doing more podcasts. It's great.
Right.
So that's a great thing. That's good for mental health. Develop self-awareness and manage emotions. Really important again, like just having that self-insight and reflection is an important thing. So again, that can be triggered off by stuff like t-shirts, podcasts, reading a book, watching something, talking to the right people. Embrace a positive mindset. That we're all guilty at times of thinking negatively about the world, about ourselves. So just embrace a positive mindset and just know that you can think differently. You might have felt or thought a certain way for 40, 50 years, but that can just change. And it can do a lot of good to change that. Stay active and engaged, do stuff that you can keep doing. If you're not going to run, go for a walk. If you go for a walk, see if you can do it for 5 minutes every day and keep that going and build a streak, keep your house tidy for a whole week, see how that goes. Learn or make your bed, as Matt said. Learn from challenges and persevere. So if you find it hard to make your bed every day, by the end of the week, reflect back on it and go, my God, I did it. And actually, I do feel better for it. Notice the good bits. Seek professional guidance. As we talk, sometimes you do need a therapist or whatever, If you can afford one, great. Otherwise, find good people who you can talk to. They will help you out.
Right.
Educate yourself and others. Again, this is what we talk to, podcast people, help it, ripple it around a bit. Practice gratitude, just be aware you've probably got more than a lot of people in this world, even if it is just a roof over your head, even if it's not a very nice roof, you've got a roof over your head, you've got food, probably. That's a good start. You're hopefully safe, if not, find some ways to get safe as you can, but practice gratitude for what you do have. Create a supportive environment. So again, boundaries, working with people, doing the right things that attract the right people to you, distance yourself from the negative a little bit. If you can, do it kindly and fairly and raise your energy. You'll attract the right people towards you. And then celebrate milestones, 10 things that if you did on a regular basis, and I think I've got fairly good at most of those. And I would say that has helped my life. So that's what I won my bit of the podcast on.
Well, very good. Yeah. And the milestones, that is a big one. I mean, and in a lot of cases, a lot of people don't want to celebrate milestones only because they don't want to seem vain. It's like, I don't want to toot my horn. It's okay to toot your horn once in a while. If it's an accomplishment, when you've reached some milestone, I'm not saying, there's a line there that you don't want to cross when it will maybe seem a little vain, but it's okay to be proud of your accomplishments and to be like, hey, and to celebrate those accomplishments openly. I mean, obviously not too terribly openly, but I think you know what I mean. But it's like, because you may inspire someone else, because someone else maybe they're getting close to a milestone, but they're also kind of slipping. They're maybe about to backslide. But yet you came out with your milestone and they're like, oh, wow, okay, I'm almost to a milestone. I'll keep pushing. And then, and you'll never know, but you may have just saved someone a lot of trouble right there. Anyway, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that kind of sums it up pretty well. Hopefully that's a good bits of information to get people thinking. It's got me thinking, like I love these conversations. I think the quality of the conversation you have with other people and yourself is really important. And if we just up it a little bit, if we take the time to actually create good quality conversations with ourselves and others, we'll start to find out what we value, what we want, and how we're going to get it. And it makes it a lot more likely that it's going to happen, So go for what you want in life. If it's going to help yourself and others, go for it.
All right, Clive, I really appreciate you, good sir. I do. And dear loved ones, I hope you have enjoyed having Clive on again, and I'm sure we'll have him back. And other than that, that's all I got. I do love you, and I'll be back directly.
Yeah. The mind becomes what it repeats, so we feed it better. Less static, more complete, less shouting, more soul, fewer scrolls, more sentences, and sometimes just water. We want clean water. We are not profiles, not metrics, not brands and meat suits. We are built for eye contact, for presence, for people, for kindness, connection, and soul. We reject the lie that standing alone means standing strong. We reject the demand to command and conquer. We are the pulse beneath the noise, the question inside the pledge. We are the hands that build again, drop the sword and pick the pen. Not angry, not asleep. We are not your sheep. Not who's to blame, but what's missing. Not who's winning, but is this helping? We ask because we care. And that is the greatest thing we have left. Apart from knowing we are still whole. We are the United States of Awakening. And if you're listening, we do not surrender. We want things, not the gaslighting of our wants and dreams. We want truthful things, soul-sized things, not filtered or monetized. Just clear, just real, not sanitized. Rebuilding can be soft, a boundary, a breath, a well-timed walk. We build not by tearing, but by showing what else is possible and what we think, speak, and how we now awake. We are not waiting for permission. We are not waiting for the perfect plan. We are not waiting for someone louder. We are the United States of Awakening. And this our time to ride. We do not surrender.